Hey, this is Donald Heslop, owner and principal of Padlock Technology, dual CCIE. Want to talk about another VPN topic or a firewall topic. We're going to actually talk about VPN load balancing. VPN load balancing. Now, VPN load balancing is basically a technique where you can distribute RA VPN sessions amongst, we're going to use Cisco term or FTD term, amongst two firewalls. Now, there's two ways to do this technically. There is DNS load balancing, DNS LB, and then there's the traditional VPN LB on the box. We're going to go over two options here. So in DNS load balancing, what you basically are doing is you have two FTDs or ASAs, all right? And you have something that is doing your global DNS, so you're load balancing your DNS traffic. Basically, there's going to be something like Azure Traffic Manager. And what that's going to do is when users from the outside world go to the FQDN of the firewall, that's on, Azure Traffic Manager, that is going to distribute the RA VPN sessions based on whatever you have. So you can distribute them equally, or you can do like an active standby, which would do a ICMP echo just to make sure that this FTD was active. And then the minute it wasn't active for some reason, it would flip over to this one, transparent to the user, because this DNS record would point to both of these boxes and just have a priority. So say FTD2 would have a priority of 100, something like that, and then FTD2 would have a priority of like 110. It really depends on how Azure Traffic Manager actually does the priority. And then, again, users come in, they're going to hit the first one, and this is usually an active standby situation, by the way. This is active standby. They would hit Azure Traffic Manager or some kind of global DNS load balancing technique that would be pinging the primary firewall to make sure that it's still alive. If it's not, then flip over to the next one, transparent to the user. Now, there is some pros to this. The pro is you don't have to configure VPN load balancing locally on the box. You don't have to do that. The con is if you're doing something like SAML authentication, and I've ran into this a bunch of times, say SAML to Azure, right? And I use Azure a lot because I did a lot of implementations with Azure. The issue with this is when you go to Azure, there's a certain token in the reply URL that has to go back to the FTD that originated the request. So what ends up happening in this situation, if you're doing like distributing amongst the two FTDs, it can come from one, hit the Azure app, and then the reply URL will end up going to another one. And then you'll get this SAML error, right? Saying the cookie error. To get around that, what you need to do is have two enterprise applications in Azure, one for this FTD and one for this FTD. Now, they did have a method where you can use this thing called a local URL. I tried it. It hasn't really worked. That was supposed to be the workaround in, I think, ASA code 918. And then in the FTD, you have to use the flex config to do that. The second way is traditional VPN load balancing. So what that looks like is same scenario, two FTDs, all right? And what they're going to do is share a VIP between the two on the outside, right? And then people from the outside world, user, is going to come to the VIP. Now, the difference between DNS load balancing and traditional load balancing is the concept of master and slave or standby, right? Active or standby. What ends up happening is that RA VPN session gets kicked over to the master, and if the master is overloaded, it will kick that session over to the secondary. If it's not, it will take on. If it's not overloaded, what it will take on the session here, right? But if it is overloaded, it will kick over to the RA VPN, the second one, the second FTD, and then that's somewhat transparent to the user. You do have to do this thing called redirect FQDN, because if you don't do that, you end up getting the IP address, and you're going to get a certificate error when you do that. Now, what are the pros and cons of this method? Well, the pro is this is a lot easier to integrate with SAML. You know what? Let me use the eraser for this because that doesn't even look like I wrote the word SAML there. So SAML. I would still do the traditional 2 apps, but I have seen some implementations where you can get away with 1 app, but then you have a greater chance of running into that cookie error when you use 1 app. The other pro to this is for people who don't have Azure Traffic Manager, this is kind of the only other way you can do it, right? And this is like the Cisco recommended way. Now, DNS load balancing is recommended as well, but there's a lot of pieces that you need outside of the 2 boxes. Now, the one caveat of this is the certificate that you assign to each box has to have 3 FQDNs in it. It has to have the VIP FQDN. Then it has to have FTD1's FQDN and FTD2's FQDN. Because what's going to happen is when you use that thing that I was talking about, redirect FQDN, the VIP is only there to push sessions. You're not actually connecting to the VIP per se. So the first thing you need to do is you're going to go to www.vpn.whatever your domain is.com. And then behind the scenes, it's going to push you to one of these FTDs, and you need to trust the certificate that that FTD is going to present as well. So what's going to happen is if you look at it from an order operations, 1, you go to the VIP, right? And then when you get pushed to whatever FTD, one of these are going to be the second certificate that you're going to get. One of these. That has to be signed by a public CA as well, so that your browser will trust it, so that your RA VPN client, in this term will be Cisco Secure Connect. If you're still using AnyConnect, this is going to be the same way as well. And you may not be able to connect because you're going to have a little button or a little option in the secure client that says block untrusted servers. So you may trust, so if you trust the VIP FQDN and not the other 2 FQDNs, it will block you when it redirects to the session. If you go to the website, you will see it in the actual website where it will go to the VIP, then you'll get redirected to one of these FTDs, and then you'll get that slash that says, hey, we don't trust this site you're going to, and you won't be able to go through. This is another technique that you can use other than active standby, normal FTD configuration, ASA configuration. This will help you utilize both boxes at the same time, and you'll be able to take on more VPN or VPN sessions because you're not just using 1 box. You're not overloading 1 box. You're kind of distributing between the 2. So that's VPN load balancing in a nutshell. If you are trying to implement FTDs or firewalls, or you're trying to do a migration from a certain other box, even an ASA, to an FTD, I can definitely help you out with that. It's going to be a link in the description to schedule a discovery call. It's not a sales call. I don't know your situation, so I can't sell you immediately on the call, and I may not be able to help you. But if you're interested in that, definitely click the link below. If not, this was a brief description of VPN load balancing, the use cases, why you should be using this for RA VPN. Hope it was informative. Thank you, and have a nice day.